One thing about God is that He is always going to provide for you. No matter what you are facing, God is literally your right hand man. He will always come to the rescue. I want to tell you guys a little story of, when I had my son back in 2016. I was still not following God the way that I should have. I was living very irresponsibly. I didn't care about nothing. I was part of the world. And back in 2016, I've mentioned before that, my son had open heart surgery at 2 months old. When I had him, he didn't cry. So the doctors knew that something was wrong. They detected a heart murmur in his heart. So the doctors decided to keep my son for a week in the NICU after he was born. And my son was born in Los Angeles, so he's from Boyle Heights, and he was born up in White Memorial Hospital. And you know how, those who know, they have like a NICU, and then they have like, rooms, like guest rooms for your parents after, you had your baby. And if your baby is in the NICU, they allow you to stay up to like 3 days, only if the mother is breastfeeding. And, when they told me that, I said, yeah, I will be breastfeeding just so that I can be with my child. I tried, and, so I was breastfeeding my baby. And that was like the only condition that they applied to me in order for me to stay in the room. And, they had like a king size bed. They had like their microwave. It was pretty decent. And I lived very irresponsibly. Like, I blew money like nothing. We were always eating out. We were just wasting money. And I had no type of money at all, because the last that we had was put into for our son to get like last minute things, because I found out I was pregnant at 7 months. So 2 months to prepare ourselves was just like crazy. And the father of my kids, he was able to get family pay leave or something like that. So we were waiting for that check to come in. We had no money, and I was on food stamps. And I remember that same week, it happened to be that I did not turn in my SR7. I didn't know that I had to do that. So I didn't meet the requirements for them to load my food stamps. So I had no money. We didn't eat that whole day. But we were just so thankful that we were able to get somewhere to sleep and not far from my son, because he was up in Boyle Heights and we lived in Compton. So, that's a very far difference. And I just didn't want to leave my baby by himself. So I was like, okay, it's fine. Like, everything's going to be fine. And I remember just like saying, like, God help me. And I didn't have like, I believe in God, but I wasn't living for God. And I was just like, oh God, like, help us. And I was crying because I was emotional. I just gave birth, and they separated me from my son. So now to finding out that there's something wrong with his heart, me and his dad were just emotional. And I remember we were sitting in the lobby in the waiting room, because we just, we wanted to walk around. And I remember that my caseworker from my food stamps called me and said, hey Karen, you haven't submitted your SR7, so I can't load your food stamps card. So I just took a deep breath, and I'm like, okay, like, thank you so much. Like, I mean, what else can I do? Because how, some caseworkers are very hard to handle sometimes. Like, they can be rude. Not all, but some of them can be rude. So I just said, that was like the last thing on my mind. I didn't care if I ate. I didn't care for nothing. I just wanted my baby to be okay. So I don't know, like, we hung up. I promise that 2 hours later, my phone rings, and how they be calling you and it's like unknown numbers, and I answered. I'm like, hello. And then I was about to say his name, and then he said, hey Karen, it's me, and he said his name, my case, the caseworker. And I was like, hi, yes. He's like, yeah, I spoke to you earlier, and about your SR7 not being submitted. And I'm like, yeah, we spoke about it. And then he's like, but hey, just try to, come in person as soon as you can. And I explained to him like what was going on, and he was like, okay, just try to stop by, and then, just try to get that filled up, and then, you'll be okay. And then he said, but I will be loading your food stamps today. So in about like 20 minutes, check your food stamp balance, and your money should be there. Oh my God. I was like, thank you so much. And I said his name, like, thank you so much. Like, we really needed this money. Like, our food stamps, like, and then I explained to him what was going on, and he was like, yeah, like, don't worry about it. I understand, problems, and I hope your son gets better, but just try to stop by as soon as you can to get that taken care of. And I was like, yeah, like, as soon as I get some news from my doctor and from my son's doctor, I can probably stop by as soon as possible. And he was like, yeah. And then we hung up, and I remember just crying I hung up and I started bawling my eyes out. And then the father of my kids was like, what's wrong? And I told him, and like we just cried, because it was just like God came through in that moment that we needed him. And hold on. Because usually when something like that happens, your food stamps can be delayed, and they won't give you the food stamps until you take care of that problem. So the fact that he had called me back to tell me that he was going to load them, that was God right there. That was all God. And I remember down the street or around the corner from White Memorial, there was a Vons. A Vons? I think that's what it's called. And so we went, and obviously we have a little room in the hospital, so we didn't have like a stove or anything. So we got like, like the cold sandwiches and like drinks, and then we got like cup of noodles. Because we had a microwave. But it's just like the fact how God came through in those moments. Even when I did not have faith, like I did have faith, but like I wasn't living for him at all. I was just like, if you would know me then and now, you would be like, whoa, And another incident was, again, I found money on the floor. Again, I did not have money in my food stamps card. And I remember I had like $5, like $6 tops. That was like the last that I had. Because, back then, like, we were being like ripped off. And I don't want to get into detail about that. So a lot of our money was being taken advantage of. So we were always like broke. And so anyways, moving on. We only had like $5, $6 into our food stamp balance, because, we had paid the rent and we had paid our share of the light bill. And, or whatever the bill, whatever it was that they were charging us. And, so we went to Superior, and we parked the car, and I would have seen this going in, to the parking lot, and we got gotten off the car. And as soon as I closed my door, literally behind the tire, there was a $20 bill. So I'm like, oh, I found $20. And, we were walking already, but I forgot my son's bottle because he was fuzzy and crying. So I went back, and again, in the same spot, there was another like $40. So I'm like, why did I did not see the $40. I only saw, literally, I picked up the 20 and there was only 20. And then when I went back to get the bottle, there was another 40. And I'm like, I didn't see it. Like, so I was confused. So I got it, and I'm like, I literally just found $60 in our parking spot. And we went forward and we did not see it. We did not see no money on the floor until I got off and closed the door. And then, I don't know. And money was literally like under our tire. And I knew that it was God. I knew in that moment, like, God, that, like, thank you for that. Like, we came for 1 gallon of milk for our son. He was like, in that age where, thank God, he didn't need the formula anymore, because, I stopped breastfeeding, so formula was a little bit more expensive. So we went for 1 gallon of milk and came back with groceries, just enough to get us through the next paycheck. And I'm like, wow, like, tell me that is not God right there. God works in mysterious ways. Like, you will never, like, just when you think that it is a lucky day. It's not. Those are blessings from God. And my faith in God was not how it is now. My faith then, I was reckless, I was naive, I was immature, I was cursing all the time, I was always lashing out in anger and fighting. I was just not in the way that God wants his children to be. And even in those moments, God made sure that I was well taken care of. God made sure that we were okay to help us get through the next paycheck. And that's how you know that we serve one strong, powerful, mighty God. Like, he is always on the lookout. And God made sure that my son was well taken care of. My God made sure that my son, que nunca le faltara nada. Like, for nothing to, I don't know how you say that in English. My English, it's a little... And that's how you know that we serve one mighty God. And even when I was not living my best life for him, he knew my struggles. He knew what I was facing. He knew that I needed him, but I didn't know how to call on to him. And even in those moments, he said, "It's okay. I got you. I will protect you. I will provide for you. I am your great healer. I am your provider, your waymaker." And that just brings me to Matthew 17:20-21, where God tells us, even if you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, nothing will be too impossible for you. And that is something that I resonate on, that because even when I was not fully living for God, my mind and my heart would cry out to God in those times of my son going through things, and in times where I needed him, and I say, "God, please help me." Just that my mouth and my mind cried out to God, and my faith was there, even if it was the size of a small mustard seed. Great things came out of that small faith that I had in God. And great things happened and helped me get through whatever it is that I was going through. So God is such an amazing Father. He is the great. He is so overprotected of his children. He is just amazing. Even when I did not deserve anything, he gave me everything. I was not fit to be a mother, and yet he knew that I needed my son to mature. He knew that I had anger and so much hatred in my heart towards people that I did not care whether to lose people who loved me, because my ego and my pride got the best of me, and he gave me my children. To say, okay, so you don't care about people's feelings, you don't care about others. Watch when you have your children. You're gonna love them no matter what. He gave me a reason to love. Like, he just works in mysterious ways, and now he taught me everything that I know now. Nobody did. He did. The Bible did. And the Bible is God. It's him speak in a way that he's speaking directly to you. And that's where I found myself. Okay. I always say that I'm not going to cry because, but as strong as I think that I am, I'm really not as what I thought that I was. And I just know that if you are battling through something, if you are having financial problems, if you are going through domestic violence, if you are being in a situation where you can't handle, talk to God. God will always get you out of that situation. God will not abandon you, and he will not let you get hurt.